Campbell River. From the mouth of the estuary that flows into the Discovery Passage to the brand new John Hart Hydro Dam. The river flows with its powerful yet soothing tranquility in a picturesque form not dissimilar to the famous movie A River Runs Through It. Although this is not the river that was depicted in that story, the Campbell River has been celebrated and written about by several famous authors, including Roderick Haig Brown, who, as a local, recognized its beauty and historical importance to the people of this area. Hi, I'm Dane Stevens, and the question I have is, does a river run to it? We're standing very close to the geographic middle of Vancouver Island right now, close to the 50th parallel where the world-renowned Campbell River runs. And this is where we discovered, like the old phrase, behind every good man is a great woman, that behind the famous Campbell River is a nondescript, often underappreciated watershed that contributes to and supports this river, the Quinsam River. But to get a full understanding of the influence the Quinsam River has on its famous cousin, we need to go further upstream. Join us right here in beautiful Vancouver Island as we travel to the headwaters of the Quinsam watershed. Then we'll fly down the river and over lakes and streams, and then back here to the Quinsam-Campbell River confluence in hopes of discovering some of its hidden secrets. About 55 kilometers southwest from the Quinsam-Campbell River confluence, and about a 2-hour drive from the city of Campbell River, you will find the Upper Quinsam Lake, the headwaters to the Quinsam River system. The largest of the 4 natural lakes in this chain, Upper Quinsam Lake measures about 6 kilometers in length, boasts an area of 504 hectares, and has 19 kilometers of shoreline. The lake's average depth is 20 meters and sits at an elevation of 364 meters above sea level. Melting snow from an average cumulative snowpack of 20 to 30 feet annually supply water to the watershed. The autumn rains supply water to the system in late summer and fall seasons. As the first and most foundational portion of this chain of lakes, the Upper Quinsam Lake is used for both positive and negative water storage by BC Hydro. They use it to control the diversion of water flows into the Campbell River system for hydroelectric production, flood control, and drought conditions. The original natural stream that flowed from Upper Quinsam Lake to Wocus Lake was altered in 1956. A straight channel, about 540 meters in length, was dug and excavated to a depth that allowed both lakes to share the same elevation for water storage. This also means that more water can be squeezed out of the Upper Quinsam Lake for the diversion of water from the Quinsam watershed to the Campbell River system for hydroelectric power. At first glance, Wocus Lake looks just like an extension of Upper Quinsam Lake. But prior to the construction of the excavated channel, they functioned independently of each other. The smallest of the chain of 4 lakes, Wocus Lake is 1.4 kilometers long and 61 hectares in size. It is dwarfed by the larger Upper Quinsam Lake above it. It too sits at an elevation of 364 meters, but has average depths of only 8 meters and a shoreline of 4 kilometers. The channel and lake shores are dotted with multiple camping sites, but, like the Upper Quinsam Lake, access points are gated and controlled by Island Timberlands, a private forestry company. Like the outlet of the Upper Quinsam Lake, the natural stream at the outlet of Wocus Lake was altered and dredged so that BC Hydro had access to more water storage for hydroelectric power. This channel is 250 meters in length. Quinsam water storage has been enabled by a dam located at the outlet of Wocus Lake, which has been operational since 1956. Quinsam River flows are determined by the operation of the main gate valve on the dam. Hydro has to maintain flows as described in their water use license agreement. At the time of filming this documentary, the Quinsam flow below the dam was 1.06 cubic meters per second. This minimum flow gives migrating salmon enough water to migrate into the lower sections of the river. The man-made dams and natural water flows downstream from here prevent migration of fish and all aquatic species from entry into the upper Quinsam Lake and Wocus Lake. Therefore, this is a very unique ecosystem which has evolved over time. At 6.1 kilometers in length, from Wocus Lake to the middle Quinsam Lake, this section of river meanders down through the logging slashes, and it isn't long before we come to one of many log jams that plagues the entire river. A few kilometers below Wocus Lake, we come to the Quinsam Diversion Dam, a man-made concrete dam built to divert water from the Quinsam River to the Campbell Lake system for hydroelectric production. Since becoming operational in 1957, the dam increases the elevation of the Quinsam River to divert water along a 1.7 kilometer long concrete flume and earthen canal that flows into Gooseneck Lake. Gooseneck Lake drains into Snakehead Lake, which in turn drains via Miller Creek and into the lower Campbell Lake. Along the entire length of the Quinsam River and lake system, there are a countless number of swamps. These swamps are a vital component to the river's ecosystem. They store, filter, and slow the drainage of water in the Quinsam River basin in the summer and early fall months when drought conditions occur. These swamps ensure that there is always some level of flow down the Quinsam River. They also provide baseline habitat for wildlife, including herds of majestic Roosevelt elk and healthy deer populations. We continue to fly down the Quinsam River and come to a BC Hydro water flow metering station. This is where the flows are monitored so hydro crews know when to increase or decrease water flows through the upstream dams. About 1 kilometer further downstream, we encounter another major log jam, which is located just above Middle Quinsam Lake. Middle Quinsam Lake has an elevation of 279 meters and is 2.5 kilometers in length. It is 71 hectares in size, with an average depth of 8 meters and a total of 6 kilometers of shoreline. The lake is home of the Quinsam Coal Mine, owned and operated by Hillsborough Resources Limited, which is a private mining company based in BC and is now closed due to a prolonged and steep decline in thermal coal prices. Because of its close proximity to the lake and river, 30 years of coal production has had an impact on water quality in the Quinsam River watershed. Ground and surface water monitoring will continue for years to come, carried out by Hillsborough Environmental Division and the Ministry of Environment. We now transition out of the lake and back to the river. This section of river, from Middle Quinsam Lake to Lower Quinsam Lake, is 10.7 kilometers long. About 1.5 kilometers downstream from the lake, we come to an amazing 15-meter high set of waterfalls. These waterfalls, locally known as the Impassable Falls, is a natural fish barrier with total obstruction of fish passage upstream. We continue downstream, and over the course of about 7.5 kilometers, the river changes from fast flows with high elevation drop to a slow, lazy, meandering river with a lot of foliage lining the banks. It's at this point we come to an important contributor to the Quinsam watershed, the largest tributary of the Quinsam River, the Iron River. The Iron River delivers huge amounts of water flow, which comes from the snowmelt and rainfall from the Iron River water basin to the Quinsam system. These seasonally high flows pushes clean gravel that migrates down to the Quinsam River, where it makes for ideal spawning habitat for coho, steelhead, and trout. Remote and almost totally inaccessible, the next 3 kilometers of river from the confluence of the Iron River to the lower Quinsam Lake has to be some of the most beautiful scenery on Vancouver Island, with huge old-growth trees and giant ferns, where the river pools, tumbles, and runs to the inlet of the lower Quinsam Lake. We now arrive to Lower Quinsam Lake, the last lake in the 4-lake system. This natural lake is 2.7 kilometers in length and 117 hectares in area, at an elevation of 178 meters. Its average depth is 7 meters and has a shoreline of 8 kilometers. The surrounding area is relatively flat and open, with numerous swamps surrounding the lake. You can still see the old railway trestle pilings at the top end of the lake. Since the 1950s, the logging companies transported logs out of these areas by rail. The lake slowly narrows and becomes a long channel with slow-moving water. This last section of river, from Quinsam Lake to the confluence of the Campbell River, is the longest at about 30 kilometers in length. At this time, there is a proposed in-stream work potential in the outlet of the lake for gravel placement for increased spawning habitat for Chinook salmon, spearheaded by the Campbell River Salmon Foundation and feasibility studies carried out by private contract. The slow-moving river comes to an area known as the Upper Cascades. The river becomes very shallow as it cascades over the bedrock and into pools. These cascades makes fish passage almost impossible. To help coho and steelhead migrate upstream, huge logs were anchored in strategic patterns to divert the water flow. In January 2016, a construction report was completed by Pacificus Biological Services for Campbell River Salmon Foundation, who funded the project. We continue downstream and come to an area of the river known as the Quinsam Potholes. Water flowing over the sandstone-type bedrock forms unique patterns, steps, and pools, making this a popular recreational site for bathing, swimming, and relaxing in the outdoors. The river continues and meanders for several kilometers where there are runs, riffles, and pools with gravel substrate, which makes for excellent fish spawning habitat for over 100,000 pink salmon. We come to another series of separate cascades called Cascades 1, 2, and 3, which also inhibits upstream fish migration. In order to give pink salmon access to the spawning grounds upstream, The bedrock was jackhammered with large machines to produce fish ladders and channels. The survey for the project was initiated in 2004 by the Haig-Brown Institute and was funded by the Pacific Salmon Foundation and Bridge Coastal Restoration Program. Design work was done by DFO staff. Construction funding was provided by the Pacific Salmon Foundation and BC Hydro and was then led by the Haig-Brown Institute with technical support from DFO. For the next several kilometers, the river slows and then winds and twists with deep, dark runs and pools, and heavy vegetation lining the banks. We now come to the Quinsam Salmon Hatchery that operates the salmon counting fence which spans the entire width of the river. This fence is used for assessing salmon runs by counting adult salmon swimming upstream in the fall and then counting the juvenile salmon migrating to the ocean in the spring. The federal hatchery is a pillar of the community. It raises and releases about 10 million salmon fry annually. These fish provide economic and social value to the commercial, First Nations, and sport fisheries. The success of this facility helps the city of Campbell River maintain its world-renowned reputation as the salmon capital of the world. Tourists come from all over the world to fish for the mighty Tyee salmon on the Campbell River. But it is the Quinsam River that now produces these powerful fish. In the fall, this area of the river has the highest concentration of fish, which, not surprising, attracts all kinds of wildlife, including bears. They all come to gorge themselves on the high-protein diet of fish and roe in preparation for the long, dark winter months to follow. The dead salmon also deliver nutrients into the river and forests, which is vital for the health of the ecosystem. Continuing downriver for just over a kilometer, we come to another very remarkable place. A small stream tributary of the Quinsam River, Cold Creek. Cold Creek is unique in the sense of where it originates. It is groundwater that flows out of the side of the hill just above the hatchery. There are small clusters of artesian wells that flow into one main stream. This water is pure, pathogen-free, constant 10 degrees Celsius, and flows at an amazing 10,000 imperial gallons per minute all year. The salmon hatchery not only utilizes this water for fish production, but also uses it to produce hydroelectricity to operate the facility. We continue on our journey downstream, and it is evident that we're nearing the completion of our trip by the amount of human activity in the area. Homes and busy roads line the river. Elk Falls Provincial Park is located at the very bottom end of the river at the confluence with the Campbell River. Tourists flock to this area to enjoy the beauty and all the area has to offer. We're now back at Campbell River, where curiosity was piqued and questions asked. Does a river run to it? What makes the Campbell River so mighty? We've learned that it's not just the Campbell River, that it's a myriad of natural and man-made bodies of water and structures that lay off the beaten path, hidden and unseen, and that these beautiful locations contribute directly to the international fame that makes Campbell River such a world-renowned place. Thank you for joining me on this epic journey of Vancouver Island and Campbell River. I'm Dane Stevens, and I'm discovering Northern Vancouver Island.